Argentina really is a fascinating country. There are few, if any, others that are more talented, shrouded in more prestige, so regularly engulfed in more chaos, and yet the producers of more greatest of all time candidates as this country. This is a nation whose football culture has always been elite, but who have been made to feel that is not a reflection of the truth more than anyone would care to admit. They can go from winning everything, sitting high in the clouds, to falling short time and time and time again. For example, between 1993 and 2021, they made 7 major tournament finals. They lost every single one. Some blamed it on arrogance, some called it a curse, some simply chalked it down to rotten luck. The political landscape has not always been in their favor. The internal affairs of the FA have often been trifling. However, as history has shown us, no matter how far they fall, they will always rise again. Today, we tell the tale of Argentina's chaotic football dynasty. Subscribe if you haven't. Helps the channel out a lot, but no pressure. The story of Argentine football starts with the British, as so many stories of a similar nature do. On the 20th of June, 1867, the Buenos Aires Cricket Club hosted what many consider the first recorded football match on Argentine soil. The players were almost entirely British immigrants. 26 years later, in 1893, a Scottish educator named Alexander Watson Hutton formalized the whole thing by helping to create the Argentine Association Football League. The Scotsman ran an English language school where he drilled the game into the curriculum. And over a century later, I guess that explains Alexis McAllister.
Yeah, it is Irish. I don't know why many people think it's Scottish.
Oh, that's my mistake. I'm a bit embarrassed now. It wasn't long before football stopped being a game played by visitors and started being something else entirely. The sport became a way of galvanizing the population, a way of negotiating class, a way of inventing a sense of national belonging out of an ocean of people who had just arrived. Eventually, this game would get a name: La Nuestra, ours. A term that essentially refers to a historic, romanticized style of playing the beautiful game. Positivity, creativity, flair, artistry over sheer physical power. That is Argentine football. Football had become so large in the country that by 1916, Argentina hosted the first official South American championship, known today as Copa America. Initially, only 4 teams were included: Argentina, Uruguay, Chile, and Brazil. Unfortunately for Argentina, they came second. Copa America 1 went to Uruguay, as did the second tournament. Brazil took the third, Uruguay again took the fourth, and then, finally, Argentina picked up their first piece of silverware on their 5th attempt in 1921. It took a bit longer than expected, considering only 4 teams were present. However, they took significantly less time than Chile, who despite being founding members, only won their first title 99 years after the first edition. Remember that for later because, funnily enough, that story did not have a happy ending for Argentina. But before getting ahead of ourselves on that rivalry, we should understand another: Argentina versus Uruguay. In 2019, a Guinness World Record entry claimed this match had been contested 194 times since 1901, making it the most played international fixture of all time. Battles between these two have always been fierce, something made all the more intriguing considering that Argentina is 16 times the size of Uruguay. To this day, it is extremely interesting how this tiny country had a stranglehold on South American football and are still a force to be reckoned with today. Argentina greatly benefited from their size though. They had clubs, leagues, schools, and football institutions before most continents even knew how to kick a ball, and they were constantly competing at the highest level against all of their neighbors. Having said that, in those early days, it did seem that they were behind not only Uruguay, but Brazil too. In 1928, Argentina would reach the finals of the Olympics. At the time, this was the biggest international football competition. They lost 2-1 against Uruguay. In 1930, Argentina reached the final of the very first World Cup, but they lost 4-2 against Uruguay. Uruguay would win 4 world championships decades before Argentina got their first, 2 Olympic gold medals and 2 World Cups. Brazil would win 3. Many have pointed towards the overall organization of the country's game as one of the reasons for this. For example, in 1948, Argentine players went on strike, the reason being that the newly formed Players' Union demanded the abolition of a wage cap, the introduction of a minimum wage, and the freedom of contract to negotiate and transfer to clubs other than their current one. Many historians describe this as the most serious industrial dispute in world football history. It lasted 5 months, and average gate receipts for league games dropped 87%. Due to both direct and indirect reasons following the strike, Argentina withdrew from the 1950 and 1954 World Cups. The strike only came to an end because club directors exploited divisions within the players. Only 86 out of the 342 players were earning the league maximum wage, while hundreds struggled on poverty wages. So the directors offered concessions to lower paid players who then broke ranks because they couldn't afford to keep striking. The failed strike caused a massive player exodus to alternative South American countries. However, the most notable was Colombia. Notable because it was the destination of a man by the name of Alfredo Di Stefano, perhaps the first truly global star that Argentina ever produced, which is ironic because he achieved this status while not playing in or for Argentina at all. While in Colombia, Di Stefano played 4 friendlies for the Colombian national team, all of them in 1951. He must not have thought much of this decision. However, once he pulled on Colombia's shirt, FIFA ruled him ineligible for Argentina's national side. Craziest thing is that Di Stefano had already won a Copa America with Argentina and had only played for Colombia in non-FIFA recognized matches, yet they still banned him. This made him ineligible for both his native Argentina and Colombia, as he was not a citizen, leaving him in a weird, stateless limbo. Being the incredible player he was, he got a lot of interest abroad, and after a tug-of-war between Barcelona and Real Madrid, he eventually joined Madrid and moved to Spain in 1953. By 1956, he was considered by many to be the best player in the world. In the same year, he got himself a Spanish passport, which led Spain to initiate the most obvious play in the world. FIFA initially refused to sanction his switch to the Spanish national team, but under pressure from the Spanish FA and what some historians even believe to be the political weight of Real Madrid, the ban was reversed. Di Stefano won 8 La Liga titles, 5 European Cups in a row, 2 Ballon d'Ors, and is the only player in history to receive the Super Ballon d'Or, an individual award for the best player in the 30 years between 1959 and 1989. He won all of this while representing Spain. Obviously, Di Stefano is the headline, but the big story here is that with all these great players leaving, Argentine football was significantly weakened and set back several years, if not decades. And just to think, all of this could have been avoided if Argentina just paid their players fairly. It's what we in the business call a generational fumble. Argentina arrived at the 1958 World Cup hosted in Sweden, their first World Cup in 24 years, having won 2 of the last 3 Copa Americas. They would soon find out that that counted very little. You see, at the time, European football was far more physical and tactical than anything they had experienced, especially after so long away from the international stage. West Germany beat them 3-1. Northern Ireland was a 3-1 win in reply. Then came Czechoslovakia, 6. Argentina, 1. To this day, Argentina's worst ever result at a World Cup, with the match being dubbed El Desastre de Suecia, the disaster of Sweden. Quote, "We didn't even know what color our opponents' jerseys were, let alone how they played. It was a total mess with lots of fights between the players and the coach. They'd send a 40 or 50 meter pass right to a teammate's chest. It was a whole different level of speed. We looked like turtles. We learned a ton at that World Cup because all we knew was to dribble. Those were the words of Jose Sanfilippo, an Argentine striker who did not play the game but witnessed it all from the stands. On Argentina's homecoming, 10,000 people were waiting at the airport in Buenos Aires just to throw insults, coins, and eggs at them. According to Amadeo Carrizo, Argentina's goalkeeper in that match, quote, "Some Argentine journalists who were in Sweden had asked people to come and find us with sticks and stones. There was a lot of anger. They wanted to kill us. They said we were traitors." End quote. In 1966, England hosted the World Cup. Argentina drew the hosts in the quarterfinal, and what followed was ugly. 35 minutes into the game, the German referee, Rudolf Kretlein, sent off Antonio Ratin, Argentina's captain, for dissent. Only issue was the referee spoke no Spanish and the players spoke no German. Still, they reportedly argued for several minutes, leaving everyone confused before he eventually left. England won by a 1-0. However, at the final whistle, in the middle of a shirt swap between England's George Cohen and Argentina's Alberto Gonzalez, England's coach, Alf Ramsey, grabbed Cohen's shirt before Gonzalez could get a hold of it, refusing to let him swap it. In fact, Ramsey was so angry with Argentina's roughhousing that he referred to them as animals directly after the match.
And this best is not possible until we meet the right type of opposition. That is a team that comes out to play football and not act as animals.
This was obviously not well received in Argentina and the whole of South America for that matter. England went on to win the World Cup. Among other actions, many have referred to this string of events and this string of words as a major contributor to the souring of opinions of the English in Latin America. In terms of football, at least. Naturally, this is another rivalry to remember for later. Argentina were in a rough spot after this elimination, and it would not get better immediately. For the 1970 World Cup, they did not even qualify. Times were rough, but lucky for them, change was on the horizon. By 1974, Argentina had a new look, led by a 36-year-old chain smoker from Rosario, Cesar Luis Menotti, also known as El Flaco, the Thin One, a man who was managing Argentine club Huracan and playing the prettiest football in the country. He would much later describe this style as quote-unquote left-wing football because he believed football styles were political. Quote, "Left-wing football is generous and committed only to the public." Menotti was told that his real job was to build a winning project at all costs. He described this later on as the greatest ambition of his life. Argentina were selected to host the World Cup for 1978, and for the first time in history, the national team was the top priority for everyone involved in Argentine football. The 4 years leading up to the World Cup were incredibly intense. International transfers of players under 25 were restricted. Training with the national team was rough. Dozens of friendlies were played. Before the tournament began, the squad spent over 50 days in a training camp. Sadly, while the plan was coming together, the military staged a coup in 1976, and all of a sudden, Argentina was living in a dictatorship, which is harrowing in itself, not even considering the fact that the World Cup was being hosted on Argentine soil 2 years from then. The regime, led by General Jorge Rafael Videla, overthrew President Isabel Martinez de Perón. The military dictatorship itself lasted until 1983. A dark period was ushered in where torture centers were actively being ran and thousands of journalists, scholars, and citizens were being disappeared overnight. One of the major detention centers, originally a Navy school, was operating about 1 kilometer from the monumental stadium, about a 7-minute walk. This was the venue that would host the World Cup final. The regime poured a fortune into the tournament. According to Argentine's Secretary of Treasury at the time, Juan Aleman, the cost was estimated at $700 million. And by the way, Argentina were not in a particularly good financial position. However, to them, It was worth it. The idea behind the tournament was one as old as time: sports washing, projecting a clean, modern, unified Argentina to the world. The tournament was boycotted, and the boycotts were heard by FIFA's then president, João Havelange, but nothing came of them. None of the teams withdrew, and FIFA proceeded with the competition. All eyes were on the Argentine national team, and they were not even able to avoid criticism regarding their sporting decisions either. At the top of the sporting critiques was the exclusion of a 17-year-old boy, Diego Armando Maradona. Maradona was already considered one of the best players in the world by that age. He was the top scorer in the Primera Division with 26 goals in 35 games. He was ready. However, Menotti did not include him. Some say part of this was due to regime pressure. For example, one rumor claimed that someone in the regime wanted Norberto Alonso to play, leaving no room for Maradona. Menotti himself is quoted as saying that it was because Maradona was too young. Quote, "He is the complete and genuine embodiment of our country. He has a great future, but his consolidation depends largely on what he does and the advice he receives from those around him. Being a star at 17 is a risk if you're not prepared to face it." End quote. It is a sensible take, especially considering what would follow. The tournament was as conspiracy-fueled as you can imagine. La Albiceleste made it past the first round relatively scandal-free, relative to the second, of course. By the end of the second round, Argentina were level with Brazil on points and behind on goal difference. Only the winner of each group proceeded to the final. Argentina needed to win by at least 4 goals against Peru in their final game to proceed to the final. They won 6-0. 5 decades later, and this match remains a controversial topic. Peru hit the ground running with the first 2 chances of the game. They looked pretty good, but after that, the ball spent almost no time in Argentina's half. Peru simply could not get themselves on the ball, which was suspicious because, according to some, they were explicitly told not to. According to the Sunday Times, in the lead-up to the game, the Argentine government shipped 35,000 tons of grain to Peru, and the Central Bank of Argentina released $50 million in frozen Peruvian assets. Of course, proof of all of this is hard to come by. On top of all of this, what has been proven is that General Videla visited the Peruvian dressing room ahead of the match. Strangely enough, moments before he did so, he was filmed while being accompanied by former United States of America Secretary of State Henry Kissinger. Jose Velasquez, a CDM from that Peruvian side at the time, was one of Peru's better players. According to his words, the suspicion was well placed.
Realmente hubo presión.
Pressured? Yes, we were pressured. What kind of pressure? Pressure from the government. From the government to the managers of the team, from the managers of the team to the coaches.
Nothing has ever been proven, like I've already said. And while some Peruvian players have boldly claimed they were pressured, others have denied it. Menotti, of course, has also always rejected the suggestion. Whatever actually happened, the result was that Argentina were in its second World Cup final. They were faced with the Netherlands, the runners-up from the previous tournament in 1974. The Dutch were strong, although in this tournament, no doubt they were not as strong as they could have been. Johan Cruyff, then only 31 years old, had helped the Netherlands qualify for the tournament, only to retire from international football before the tournament began and not participate in 1978. For decades, many believed that Cruyff had abstained from the tournament due to the Argentina political situation, being pressured, or perhaps something a bit more sinister. It was only in 2008 when Cruyff felt comfortable enough to share his true reasoning for not playing. A kidnap attempt that left him unwilling to travel entirely. Quote, "I had a rifle at my head. I was tied up, my wife tied up. The children were in the apartment in Barcelona. To play a World Cup, you have to be 200%. There are moments when there are other values in life." End quote. Cruyff was not present as the Netherlands slumped to a second consecutive final loss, 3-1. to Argentina. Mario Kempes, with his 2 goals in the final and 6 in the tournament, was awarded both the Golden Ball and the Golden Boot. Argentina became the second South American team to win the World Cup on home soil and had finally begun to catch up to their continental rivals. Even still, as you can imagine, while this was a long time coming, the circumstances cannot be ignored. What the world was watching was a military regime handing out a trophy to its own team while political prisoners were being tortured within walking distance of the ceremony. The story, it hasn't aged very well. To this day, to many, this World Cup is forever tainted. 4 years later, Argentina arrived in Spain as defending champions, this time equipped with Diego Maradona. In the background, the tournament began during the Falkland conflict between Argentina and the UK. Argentine teenagers were dying in the South Atlantic while Menotti's squad was preparing for a World Cup. As you could imagine, players such as Daniel Passarella have stated that the team was not in any emotional state to play a World Cup. He regretted participating. All the same, the war intensified nationalism around the team, and the players were seen as representatives of a country in conflict. At the end of the day, though, they could not progress far, being eliminated in the second round. So the team started again. 4 years later, in 1986, Argentina had a functional, disciplined, defensively organized side. But let's all be real here. What pushed them over the top was their ultimate weapon of mass destruction, the best player in the world. Argentina rolled through the group stage and beat Uruguay in the round of 16. In the quarterfinals, they got England. In Diego Maradona's memoir, Yo Soy El Diego, published 14 years later in 2000, he was quite frank about what that match meant to him and his teammates. Quote, "Somehow we blamed the English players for everything that had happened, for everything that the Argentinian people had suffered. I know that it sounds crazy, but that's the way we felt. The feeling was stronger than us. We were defending our flag, the dead kids, the survivors." End quote. He was talking about Islas Malvinas, the Spanish name for the Falkland Islands. Maradona used this rage to produce undoubtedly the most iconic 4 minutes in World Cup history. Minute 51. A ball is lifted into the opposition's box, leaving 5'5" Diego Maradona one-on-one with England's 6-foot goalkeeper Peter Shilton in an aerial duel. Maradona wins. How? Well, upon closer inspection, it is evident that both players felt that they were well within their rights to use their hands, goal given. After the game, he was asked to let the world know what really happened. In his words, it was, quote, "a bit with the hand of Maradona and another bit with the hand of God," end quote. Minute 54, he latches onto a ball in his own half. No reason to fear, the English fans must have thought. We have him right where we want him, as far away from our goal as possible. If only that were true. 5 evaded challenges, 60 meters, 11 seconds, and 0 passes later, and it was 2-0. 16 years later, in 2002, this would be voted as the greatest World Cup goal of the 20th century, and it's hard to argue that any goal has trumped it since. 2-1 to Argentina. Midfielder Steve Hodge was savvy enough to swap shirts with Maradona following the match. Savvy because 36 years later, in 2022, the shirt was auctioned off for £7.1 million, making it the most expensive piece of sports memorabilia of all time. Fun fact, something must have been in the air in 2022 as that figure was exceeded twice by a Michael Jordan 1998 NBA Finals jersey and a Mickey Mantle 1952 Topps card. Since then, even crazier numbers have been seen for memorabilia, but this is not the video to get into any of that. Just a bit of trivia for you. Going back to 1986, Belgium fell to Argentina in the semifinals and then Germany in the final. During the tournament, Maradona attempted or created more than a half of Argentina's shots, attempted 90 dribbles, 3 times more than any other player, and was fouled 53 times in 7 games. He scored or assisted 10 of Argentina's 14 goals, including the assist for the winning goal in the final. Before the tournament even began, nobody in the world even came close to matching his ability or impact. After the tournament, the common consensus was that Maradona won this World Cup virtually single-handedly. From prodigy to best player in the world to best player of all time. As soon as the images of Maradona lifting the trophy began to circulate, this was an opinion that was commonly accepted as fact in Argentina. The second star was secured. Argentina were already thought of as favorites whenever they went. However, after the '86 win, they had an aura that was only really reserved for 3 other nations in World Cup history: Brazil, Italy, and Germany. Brazil and Italy were tied in pole position with 3 World Cups each. Argentina and Germany were both tied on 2. So, because the football gods have a sense of humor, they decided the next tournament would be a tiebreaker: Germany versus Argentina, World Cup Final 1990, the direct rematch of the 1986 final. Bonus points for Argentina, as they had to knock both Brazil and Italy out in the round of 16 and semifinals respectively. Sadly for them, this did not count for much. Germany won, Argentina 0. Round 2 goes to the Germans. If you're sad you didn't get to watch it live, it seems there is no reason to be. This match has often been described as the lowest quality World Cup in football history, with the reason being the excessive time wasting and generally slow tempo the match was played in. In fact, the entire tournament is remembered as a rather dull affair for that exact reason. Argentina were able to claim some comfort after victory in the 1991 Copa America. Believe it or not, this was their first Copa America triumph since 1959, 32 years. It was also their 13th continental title, with a young Gabriel Batistuta finishing as top scorer with 6 goals. 2 years later, in 1993, Argentina did it again. Both victories were marked almost equally by the prestige of winning the famous trophy, as well as the fact that Diego Maradona did not play in either tournament. His absence in 1991 was due to a 15-month ban for his highly publicized drug use and general decline in form. He missed 1993 amid fitness, form, and club problems. At this point in time, La Albiceleste had won 3 major tournaments in 7 years: the 2 aforementioned Copa America titles and the 1986 World Cup, not mentioning that their losses included a runner-up medal in the 1990 World Cup. So perhaps it's not surprising that Argentina suffered from a pitfall that is all too common to every empire that the world has ever seen: arrogance. Arrogance that the footballing world, and Colombia in particular, were eager to punish. And just so we're all on the same page, those are not my words. In the 1994 World Cup qualifiers, Argentina ended up finishing second in their group and barely managed to even qualify for the World Cup itself. An own goal in the Interconfederation playoffs against Australia was just enough to spare them ultimate embarrassment. I mentioned Colombia, as they were one of the main reasons Argentina were in this situation to begin with. Colombia, in the throes of a golden generation of their own, served Argentina a 5-0 hammering in the last game of the qualifiers, topping their group. Notably, this result was only 2 months after their 1993 Copa America win, a result that left the footballing world in shock. After this result, Argentina's biggest sports magazine blacked out their front page in mourning, printing the scoreline and just below it in big, bright yellow, Vergüenza, shame. Mauricio Silva Guzman, a renowned Colombian journalist, once wrote a book dedicated to this match and the effect that it had on Colombian football. In this book, he alludes to the fact that this victory and the events that occurred in it were done, quote, on the behalf of all South Americans who have for so long suffered the arrogance of Argentina, end quote. The end of Maradona's international career was ushered in thanks to yet another failed drug test at the 1994 World Cup. And that, my friends, was the end of an era. Whether you believe in the supernatural or not, if somebody were to describe how the next cycle in Argentina's history would play out, it would be hard to find a more appropriate word than this: cursed. 28 years passed on as Argentina suffered disappointment after disappointment, failing to emulate their past successes. They became the best losers in the world. 18 major tournaments, 7 finals, 0 trophies. Between 1993 and 2021, they lost more major tournament finals than the number of World Cup tournaments that most nations have qualified for. First, there was Denmark, then Brazil, then Brazil again, then Brazil once more, then Germany, then Chile, then Chile again. As we've established, the Argentina-Brazil rivalry is a highly contentious one. Losing 3 finals in a row to them is less than ideal, to say the least. And while each and every one of these finals hurt in their own way, it was surely the final 3 in the mid-2010s that stung the deepest. This is in large part due to the fact that they occurred back to back to back in the space of 3 years. It was also during a time where Argentina was absolutely stacked. Between 1995 and 2007, there were 7 FIFA Under-20 World Cups. Argentina won 5 of them. In fact, no other nation has won more Under-20 World Cups than them, with 6 in total. Argentina won back-to-back in 2005 and 2007. The best player in 2007? Sergio Aguero. The best player in 2005? Lionel Messi. They were producing world-class players at a frightening rate, but there was something deep within that was preventing them from taking the final step on a senior level. Was it mental? Was it spiritual? Was it cosmic? Nobody knows. By 2014, Lionel Messi was only 26 years old with 4 Ballon d'Ors to his name and much, much more. Sacrilege was already rife regarding conversations involving him, as some believed he may already have surpassed Diego Maradona. However, this was a notion that was quickly denied by those against it. Maradona had one of these. It's what we call the ultimate trump card, and it's near impossible to counter. It did look like that was about to change in 2014 though. Argentina met Germany, now for the 3rd time in a World Cup final. Round 3 went to the Germans. 1-0. For Argentina, it seemed that Germany was the hurdle that they just could not leap over on the international stage. Germany eliminated them in the 2006, 2010, and 2014 editions. On the continental stage, Argentina and Chile share the longest international border of any 2 nations in South America. That, along with various historical geopolitical issues that the nations have faced, means that this is a heated rivalry too. If you recall, Chile were the black sheep of the Copa America founder nations, and by 2015, they had not won any major silverware whatsoever as a nation. This was until the Chilean golden generation proved that their destiny was stronger than their neighbors. Alexis Sanchez, Arturo Vidal, Eduardo Vargas, and Claudio Bravo snatched back-to-back titles from Argentine hearts. Germany won once, Chile twice. All 3 of these losses took more than the normal 90 minutes to be decided, and all 3 featured Argentine sides that squandered massive opportunities to end the curse. Over here, we have 3 clips that I would suggest you close your eyes for if you are a Gonzalo Higuain sympathizer.
Terrible back header into the path of Higuain, who should have opened the scoring.
Magic, Levenzi, back post. Va a ser el primero de Higuain.
Having said all of this, Higuain was not the only one to blame. Football is a team sport, after all. Yes, Messi did a lot of heavy lifting over the years. He also missed his fair share of important chances, including a penalty in the 2016 Copa America final. Yes, Higuain missed a few big chances too. He also scored his share of important goals to get to those finals in the first place. And then there is the Argentine FA. If you've been following the story, you won't be surprised to hear that they had their own issues too. But I guess none of this matters, because at the end of the day, the history books will forever read the same thing for each player. L. By 2016, Lionel Messi was 29, but after losing 4 finals in his career, 3 Copa America finals and 1 World Cup, he felt he could no longer subject himself to the pressure of the national team. Quote, "I tried my hardest. It's been 4 finals and I was not able to win. I tried everything possible. It hurts me more than anyone, but it is evident that this is not for me. I want more than anyone to win a title with the national team, but unfortunately, it did not happen." Fellow players Sergio Aguero and Javier Mascherano also considered quitting. Having said that, all 3 would return to the Argentina fold ahead of the 2018 World Cup. Happy days, I guess, is what I would say if manager Jorge Sampaoli's strategy didn't simply boil down to pass it to Messi and hope for the best. Round of 16 exit. The drought endures. Argentina's dark years were devastating to the nation. What made it worse was the fact that the on-pitch disappointment was intensified thanks to the chaos at the decision-making level. Between 2014 and 2021, the AFA went into freefall. Julio Grondona was the president of Argentina's FA, FIFA's senior vice president, and FIFA head of finance. On the 30th of July 2014, he passed away. He had been in charge for 35 years, and while he may not have been popular for his entire tenure, people would soon realize how much better they had it while he was around. His first vice president, Luis Segura, stepped in as interim chief, which led to the entire system collapsing within a year. This led to an election in December 2015 between Segura and TV mogul Marcelo Tinelli. There were 75 voters in total. However, when the results were tallied, the final score was 38 votes to 38 votes. For everyone as bad at math as I am, that is 76 votes. Suspicious. There were allegations of bribery, threats, and ballot stuffing on both sides, and in the end, Segura was charged with aggravated administrative fraud in June 2016 over the mismanagement of domestic and broadcasting funds. FIFA swiftly stepped in within days, installing a normalization committee to run the federation by proxy. The financial crisis continued into 2017 when players who had gone unpaid for months threatened to strike. Diego Maradona accused the post-Grondona AFA leadership of being a quote-unquote mafia. The president of Argentina, not of the FA, of the country, Mauricio Macri, labeled the entire Argentine FA as corrupt. The instability extracted a heavy cost. Following the 2014 World Cup final, the AFA cycled through 4 coaches in 4 years and were repeatedly turned down by the bigger names it actually wanted. Diego Simeone and Mauricio Pochettino, for example, both declined. But even if these managers obliged, there was no guarantee that the AFA would have been able to even afford them. As we've established, their money problems and their ability to manage it, or rather lack thereof, were well documented. Following the 2018 World Cup, Jorge Sampaoli left only a year after signing a 5-year, $15 million deal as the manager. Upon his exit, the AFA spent hours negotiating his fee down to under $2 million. So, now broke and out of big-name options, Argentina turned to Sampaoli's assistant, Lionel Scaloni. Argentina were knocked out in Russia 2018 with one of the oldest squads in the tournament, a fractured dressing room, and reports of near mutiny. Scaloni was there to witness how it all unfolded. Few knew more than him regarding the depths of Argentina's problems. His background was that of a former Argentina international. He was part of the Deportivo La Coruña squad that won La Liga in 2000. He was part of an Argentina side that won the Under-20 World Cup in 1997. What he was not part of as a player was senior international triumph of any kind. In his first ever job as a senior head coach, Scaloni was put in charge of his country. It was only on an interim basis and purely as a stopgap until a worthy name became available, although some weren't happy with the appointment. Among them was, of course, Diego Maradona. Quote, "Scaloni's a great guy, but he can't even direct traffic. How can we give the Argentine national team to Scaloni? Are we crazy? The problem is he thinks he's a coach and wants to go to the World Cup. He can go, but to the motorcycle World Cup, not the soccer one." End quote. These comments, of course, made their way back to Lionel Scaloni. 7 years later, in 2025, he did an interview with Alvar de Ciro, where he gave some insight into how Maradona's words made him feel. Quote, "They didn't hurt me at all. At that time, those kinds of criticisms were normal. I hadn't coached anywhere, I had no experience, and he, true to form, didn't hold back. I'm not saying he was right, but he didn't say anything out of line." End quote. Now, you should know that by the time this interview had come out, a lot of time had passed, and, to be frank, Lionel Scaloni had free license to say whatever the hell he wanted. And that's because he cancelled the jinx. Anulo Mufa. Cancel the jinx. It's a phrase that proliferated in Argentine football after almost 3 decades of disappointment, the idea being self-explanatory. The job at hand was massive. Upon appointment, Scaloni first and foremost looked to lift the spirits of the camp and strengthen their mental fortitude. He surrounded the team with people he trusted as support staff: Pablo Aimar, Roberto Ayala, Walter Samuel, all former players that the current crop of players respected and who carried the sorrow of the country's defeats from the 2000s. Scaloni, as we've discussed, was also one of those players. Fun fact, Pablo Aimar was Lionel Messi's idol and main inspiration when he was growing up. You won't have a hard time believing that this does quite a lot to lift the atmosphere in a dressing room. In the 2019 Copa America, La Albiceleste were eliminated in the semifinals, but Scaloni was given another chance. This also meant that by the 2020 Copa America, it was truly make or break. Luckily, for Argentina, they were selected as hosts of the tournament alongside Colombia. Home ground advantage would do them wonders. Unlucky for Argentina, a global pandemic caused the tournament to be postponed to 2021. By the time CONMEBOL were prepared to reconvene the following year, Argentina was stripped of hosting rights due to a COVID outbreak in the country, and Colombia were also stripped of hosting due to political instability. 13 days before kickoff, CONMEBOL hosting privileges fell to Brazil. In the lead up to the tournament, this wasn't the only thing that was not going according to the script. According to midfielder Rodrigo de Paul, outside sentiments were still as heated as ever. Quote, "At first, there was mistrust. With us, with the coaching staff, it was quite difficult. Before the Copa America, we had 2 qualifying matches and we tied them." End quote. He was referring to 2 World Cup 2022 qualifying games against Chile and Colombia. In any case, Scaloni pressed on. The coach rebuilt the team around Lionel Messi without making it feel like it all rested on Messi. He relied on big game players like Angel Di Maria without putting all the pressure on him either. Rodrigo de Paul was the midfield engine and Messi's protector. Leandro Paredes and Giovanni Lo Celso were in the midfield. Lautaro Martinez up front, Marcos Acuna and Nicolas Tagliafico at centre-back. Then came arguably the 2 most important additions: Christian Romero at centre-back and Emiliano Martinez in goal. Romero's aggression and decisiveness was paramount. Martinez is a fascinating case. By 28, he was uncapped for Argentina and was backup at Arsenal for almost a decade. Nobody seemed to trust him through the most important formative years of his career. I wish I could say that someone saw something in him and knew he was the one, that he could end the funk and all of that, but the truth is that Lionel Scaloni's undisputed number 1 was Franco Armani. And why wouldn't it be? Armani was a 2-time Copa Libertadores champion. He was reliable between the sticks. However, just before the 2021 Copa America, he got COVID. Now, remember those World Cup qualifiers De Paul was talking about earlier? Those were Emi Martinez's first ever caps for Argentina at 28 years old. He did well in those games, but I'll let you guess what the sentiment was back home, that a keeper that seemingly nobody had faith in would be entrusted to serve as number 1, going into an extremely important competition. If you believe in curses, you likely believe in luck too. Perhaps that's one way of describing what happened next. Argentina's kryptonite through the cursed years was more often than not football's greatest equalizer: penalties. Over the course of the 28-year drought, Argentina went to penalties 9 times and lost 6 of them, 3 of them in finals. By 2024, Emiliano Martinez had been a part of 4 penalty shootouts for Argentina as their main goalkeeper, and he had won every single one of them. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's start with 2021. Going into the Copa America, knowing he had to win at all costs, Lionel Scaloni abandoned the idea that Argentina had to play expansive, possession-heavy football. He settled into a pragmatic, compact style that defended well, scored early, and protected leads while always pushing up the field when the chance presented itself. They had over 50% possession in only 1 of their 7 games all tournament. They scored more than 1 goal in only 2 of their 7 games all tournament. All of this drew criticism at the time for being unambitious. But all those that had laid critiques were made to eat their words after a historic 1-0 win against hosts Brazil in the Maracanã Stadium. Angel Di Maria scored the goal that ended the curse, and it was only up from there. Free of the curse, the 2022 World Cup was next. Scaloni decided that there was no need for the caution exercised in the 2021 Copa America, seeing as they were back in their groove. So his Argentina set out to be more free-flowing, more loose with their attacking flair. The team was more or less unchanged from the Copa America win, with wonder kids Enzo Fernandez and Julian Alvarez notably added to the mix. Going into this tournament, Argentina were on a 36-game unbeaten streak, by far the most superior team on the planet and runaway favorites to lift the cup. They were drawn in a group with Mexico, Poland, and Saudi Arabia. Light work for the favorites, right?
Excuse me, where is Messi? Where is Messi? Where is Messi? Where is Messi?
After what is one of the greatest shocks in World Cup history, Saudi Arabia played the absolute game of their lives and came out 2-1 winners against Argentina in their opening game. The pressure was immediately back on. Then again, the recovery was even more swift. After this, Argentina never lost another match. 2-0 apiece in their remaining group fixtures. Australia fell next. The Netherlands came after in a match later dubbed the Battle of Lusail. These two countries were no strangers. This was their 6th meeting in a World Cup, and it was their most brutal. Before the match, Louis van Gaal, the Netherlands coach, claimed that the Dutch were confident of a win, claiming that Messi was not very effective off the ball and that he was confident of a win if it went to penalties. The Argentine camp heard about these words and they were not happy. In the game, Argentina sped it to a 2-0 lead. The Dutch pulled one back late on, which increased the temperature quite a bit. In the 88th minute, Leandro Paredes fouled Netherlands' Nathan Ake and then booted the ball right into the Dutch bench. This, of course, led to a mass scuffle. When everyone was separated, the Netherlands then equalized in the 10th minute of added time, eventually leading to penalties. Despite some clear animosity and a fair share of attempted scaring tactics, Emiliano Martinez did his thing, saving 2 penalties, and the day belonged to Argentina. A FIFA World Cup record, 18 yellow cards and 1 red card were dished out over the 120 minutes.
Bueno, Leo, quedaste un poco caliente por el final.
¿Qué mira, bobo? ¿Qué mira, bobo? Anda para allá, bobo. Anda para allá.
Tranquilo, Leo. Bueno.
Messi was talking to Dutch striker Wout Weghorst here while giving a post-match interview. For a guy like him, who almost never lets his emotions get the better of him, this tells us just how heated this match was. Nothing was stopping Argentina. Next came Croatia in the semi-finals, finalists of the previous World Cup, 3-0 to Argentina. Then came France, winners of the previous World Cup. Kylian Mbappe was on a mission to make France back-to-back World Cup winners and showed as much with a hat-trick over 120 minutes. Unfortunately for France, the destiny of Argentina was too strong to be denied. On penalties, in Argentina's most important moment in decades, they delivered big. Messi had his trophy. To a lot of people, the GOAT debate was officially dead and buried. The comparisons and the claims were no longer sacrilege, no longer outrageous. With the same core players, the 2024 Copa America went exactly how you think it would. Another win. And with that, Argentina joined Spain as winners of their continental trophy on either side of a World Cup. The jinx was not only cancelled, it was absolutely obliterated. Dynasties, by their very nature, tend not to last too long. Like all of them, this one will inevitably come to an end. That is, of course, if it has not done so already. But if you're an Argentine supporter, that should not worry you. If you've been half paying attention to this video, you will realize that this nation does not back down. Even in the face of adversity, they find ways to pick themselves up and go again, over and over again. I'd say, given what they've achieved lately and the lessons that you hope have been learned, the chances of a curse showing its head once more are slim. Not zero, but still slim. And there we have it. Hope you enjoyed. If you want to support the channel, you can do so on Patreon. All proceeds go towards editors so you can see more of this kind of stuff. That's all from me. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you're having a great day. Cheers, and I will catch you in the next one.